Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar on SharePoint automation and secured signing to create end-to-end digital contract solutions. I'm Lindsay Bradfield and I'm Director of Business Development at Secured Signing. So I'll be your host today, and we're fortunate to have Jean Turner, Managing Director of Lawhawk, and Hayden Sinclair, SharePoint Architect and Principal from the Sharepoint Agency with us. So they're legal automation experts and SharePoint experts. Jean was a partner at Buddle Finlay, one of New Zealand's largest law firms, prior to starting Lawhawk 6 years ago. So he's super experienced in all things procurement processes and contracts, as well as legal automation. Hayden's been heavily involved with SharePoint for over 13 years, the last 10 of which have been running the SharePoint Agency, and he's expert in delivering out-of-the-box SharePoint and Office 365 functionality, with a particular emphasis on content management, search-driven applications, usability, and Power Apps development.
Okay.
Cool. So in the next 45 minutes, I'll just give you a brief overview about secured signing, and then we'll hand over to Jean and Hayden to talk about common problems with SharePoint and automation, the benefits of automating, and they'll give you a demonstration of how it all works together in practice. So secured signing is a digital signing and online forms cloud platform. We launched in 2010 and we've got clients in 30 countries around the world. Despite the global focus, we've got headquarters in New Zealand, and we integrate with many software providers, including Microsoft SharePoint. And just to paint the picture for those of you that are not so close to this, the difference between electronic signatures, which is the broader category, and digital signatures, I'll just quickly explain. So on the right is a digital signature, and that's pretty common with people drawing a signature on a piece of paper, uploading and copying and pasting into a document. The document can be edited after the signature's been placed, it can be easily copied, etc. So that's electronic signatures, but digital signatures on the left is the more secure category because it's sealing in the signature into the document, so the document can't be edited afterwards. And it's also putting a time and date stamp with the signature, so you know exactly when it was applied. And that gives you integrity of the document as well as the signing process. So with that brief overview, I'm now going to hand over to Jean to talk about common problems with SharePoint automation and digital signatures.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. So Hayden, I might throw to you to start with. Perhaps if you want to begin by talking about what you see just in the more general sort of SharePoint environment and business world.
Yeah, I guess, well, typically what I see is like there'll be companies and they've moved to Office 365 and SharePoint. The driver for most people to move to Office 365 has been the emails. So you get rid of the email server that's sitting in a cupboard somewhere and move everything into the cloud, and it's a lot more secure and, much better feature set for you. After a while of using, just the emails, people start to think, well, what's the SharePoint button do in the Office 365? You click on that waffle at the top left-hand side of the page, you'll see all the different apps within Office 365, and one of those is SharePoint. And yeah, so after a while, people think, well, we can move all our documents off the file server into SharePoint, and often that just involves moving everything into one document library. So you might have, say, 50,000 or 100,000 documents in one document library, and that's when things start to turn get a bit messy, gets a bit hard to manage permissions. And it just gets a little bit ugly. People start syncing 100,000 files down on OneDrive and then start deleting them because they want to free up some space on their C drive rather than unsyncing. And you get all sorts of issues unless you've actually mapped it out kind of. In the start, you want to sort of, get your SharePoint sites mapped out properly, and then it becomes a lot more manageable from there.
Great. So from our experience, which has been a lot more focused on legal and compliance side of things, we sort of see related to that, particularly when organisations are then thinking about their contracts. Like often it's really difficult to find them. It was a real focus during the early stages of COVID. It was a scramble to try and figure out what contracts companies had and where they were. And so that's been an issue. There's related issues around then, even if you can find them, just actually knowing what the content of those contracts is. So if they've just been saved as PDFs and they were kind of created in a more manual way, then there's not actually a lot of data available around what the content of those contracts are and which ones you need to focus on more. And then we also see that there's been a real shift, I suppose, and emphasis of organisations wanting to be able to work more remotely as people have had to work from home, needing to be able to delegate more work that can't be so closely supervised when you're not all in the same location. But that can be quite a hard thing to do if your systems and processes have all been done in a way where there's just not the same kind of ability for people to see what they need to do and how to do it. And so those are the common challenges that we regularly come across.
Yeah, exactly. And like anything, if you let everyone come up with their own method of doing something, there'll be 10 different methods to do everything. So it really is the responsibility of the company and the organisation to say, well, this is how we want it done, and this is the way that you should be doing it. Don't come up with your own method to create contracts. We've got one, thank you. Don't go false savers on one that you did 13 years ago, and put us in serious strife. And that's exactly what.
Yeah, regularly. So what we're going to do today, we're going to show some examples of the type of stuff that's possible. And before we get to that, I guess what we're aiming to show is just what the benefits will be, and that'll be including a bunch of things like freeing up time. So you'll see now there's some massive time savings that are possible, and they won't necessarily just be internal to yourself or your team. It can extend out to your clients as well. You can really take a lot of bottlenecks out of these processes where there's often delays built in as things are sent to people, and you have to then chase them up to see where things are at, and you can see how it's all more joined up. A key thing is just that the technology that you're already paying for, the Microsoft 365 suite, you can get more from your investment in that. And you'll also then be able to see how you can create a lot more useful information. You'll be able to find it, all the structured data that automation enables you to create then can flow through to being able to have better insights and decision making quickly. And ultimately, you're going to have a lot more compliance with your key processes and more visibility of how things are being done and that they are being done in a compliant way as well. So that's some of the things that I hope that you'll see as we go through the rest of the demo. So what we're going to cover is we're going to look at SharePoint in particular and how you can use that for your project and document management. We're going to look at how you can create automated contracts and do that within SharePoint. We're going to look at how you can easily incorporate notification and approval processes into some of those processes. We'll touch briefly on how you can use Office 365 to collaborate either internally or externally to finalize documents. And then we're going to show at the end how you can use secured signings integrations with SharePoint to really easily be able to launch a signing process directly out of SharePoint, send a document out for signing, have it signed, and then returned back and saved into SharePoint where you can easily find it. So that's what we'll cover. So we'll get started. Lindsay will make me the presenter now. Cool. So can I just check, is that showing the Microsoft 365 app screen there? Awesome. So before we get into the detail of the demo, Hayden, do you just want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we can see on the screen there then, and just that range of tools that's available within Microsoft 365?
Yeah, it can be a bit overwhelming, can't it? And each one of those does a distinct thing that is quite useful. Some of the big ones there, I mean, Delve, I don't know if anyone's that familiar with Delve, but that's an incredible tool that lets you search through every document that you've got permissions for within Office 365. So if you've set up, if you put all your documents into one document library, savvy employees who come along to Delve and type in confidential in the morning and see what sort of stuff has popped up there that people have accidentally shared with the whole company. If you're talking about a company with 100,000 employees, it's quite entertaining to go on and every morning and type in who's put something on OneDrive, shared it with the whole organisation about. Potentially embarrassing, so you've got to keep an eye out for that one. Then you've got, say, forms, as say for public-facing forms. Kaisala is an interesting app. It lets you, it's sort of like Microsoft's version of WhatsApp for Office 365. So you can sign up without a username and password. You can just sign up with your mobile phone and then join a mobile community, through your app, through an app that's installed on your device. So great for a mobile workforce. Obviously, you run those about Outlook. OneDrive is, every Office 365 user's got about 1 terabyte of space on their OneDrive. So that's more for storing, say your working files or just, personal information and documents there. It's almost like your SD drive, really. Got Power BI, obviously, which is an incredible way to do, present data and information in graph formats. Stream is really good. That's Microsoft's version of YouTube. So you can upload all your corporate videos into Stream and have those available. And it actually goes through and notates everything that everyone sees as you go, which is quite incredible. And Yammer, of course, is their version of Facebook. And you've probably all heard of Teams as well. So yeah, there's a lot to cover in different apps. There's often new ones popping up as well.
And Power Automate obviously is a key thing that you use a lot to be able to join all these things together and create the workflows that kind of we'll be using some of that in the demonstration.
Yeah, Power Automate's incredible. So, whenever somebody, a contract date pops up, because we've pulled it out into a SharePoint list column, we can then look at that date, and then every time that date comes up, we can do something like send an email, send a tweet, do all sorts of things that you can look up with all sorts of applications that aren't just even Office 365 related. So you can do, almost anything with Power Automate.
There's quite a lot of Power Automate stuff in what we're going to show. So if I switch screens here, and we'll just go to a demo SharePoint site, and we can sort of touch on some of the types of things that you can do with SharePoint really easily, including just have a nice kind of really well presented landing page. Hayden, you might want to talk about just the templating and stuff that goes in here, just how quickly and easily these pages can be sort of set up and styled.
Yeah, it used to be a real mission, and it might be a few weeks to get something looking, reasonable together. Now you can go to the SharePoint lookbook, and so Google that, and I've got demo sites that you can quickly install onto your Office 365 environment, and then use that as a starting point to create your own landing page.
And so you can have different pages for all sorts of different things, and then you can create different sort of areas of your SharePoint site for all the different types of things you want to do. And so just looking briefly at some of the things that we've got in here as examples, you can have kind of knowledge management hubs where you can keep all sorts of different information. These maybe have a bit of a legal flow to them or flavor to them, but you could can have all sorts of different categories. And so, guides and know-how, precedent documents you want people to use, training, resources and materials, all that sort of stuff you can really bind all together in one place where people know they can go and find what they need. You can create, and we'll come back to this, the sort of self-service areas where people can go knowing that some of those templates that they used to just pull up as a Word document, square brackets, this is where they can come and they can just click a button and either send a request in for a legal team or someone else to help, or generate their own documents and various things that are needed. Over here, we'll come back to it as a list where we keep some data around different types of contracts. And you can also use it for setting up your, in this case, we've called it matters, but effectively it's project management. And so whatever structure would make sense for you in terms of how you want to kind of categorize your information, you can manage all that sort of stuff through creating effectively subsites for that. Hayden, you might want to talk a little bit about what you do in this area.
Yeah, exactly. So we created a templated subsite for, in your case, the Lawhawk matters. And because most organisations have a folder structure that they have for each new matter or each new project, and we can replicate whatever that structure is into a SharePoint site template. And then when you click, new matter, we use Power Automate to then go and actually create that site for you and set all the default values for all the different things like the client name, the matter name, and all the different types of document there. And you can quickly sort of, create your own matter so that, at least that way you've got a consistent matter structure across all of your matters. So if you're a law firm, a new lawyer comes in, they don't have to learn 1,000 different structures, and they know where all the documents are related to every single matter because you've been formally said, well, this is where we're going to store every single, document related to any sort of matter. And, we can categorize those that you see here, down by the different categories that you may have as an organization.
Cool, so I'll just do it as an example here, a secured signing 25 March matter, and we'll say it's in the corporate category, and I'll click save. So in the background, you've got a whole bunch of stuff will now be happening, Hayden, that will create that matter and all the folders and things that are necessary. So we'll come back to that one after. Next thing that we'll do though is just look at that self-service kind of option, and you can have a lot of different kind of processes or things that can be run. It could be generating documents, it could be requesting delegations of authority, it could be getting answers to questions. There's all sorts of things that you can do here. One that we'll look at is creating a contract for goods or services, because while some people think that automation is only for really simple things, you can definitely use it for some quite complex processes as well. And I'll just jump over to this tab where we've already got one a little bit underway, just to give you an idea of what's possible here. So this is a contract for goods or services. It's actually based off the government's model contract. So this is widely used by central government and local government, and we've got councils that are using this as a live solution. And what we've done is we've actually taken like a goods contract and a services contract, which are normally maintained as separate documents, and we've combined them under one interview. So you made it really easy for people to be able to come into one place and work out whether they're buying goods or services, and then having different information that is captured depending on that. Briefly capture some details of the user, and so we can email them back about it. You have some initial contract details can be added. You really quickly can skip through sort of things like your buyer details, because you can pre-fill a lot of the addresses and things that are all relevant to the organization. So you don't have to type so much as just select the core options. So what you really want to be doing is getting into the guts of the contract. This is where the real value is added in terms of what is it that we're actually looking to do here. And so you can give options, for instance, to set out background information that can help to understand the context and what the parties are really getting together to try and achieve. Or if not necessary, you can skip over that. You could just attach another document and cross-refer to that if there was already a proposal or something that set it out, or you can set out all the details within these forms, and these forms can be as long or as short as you need them to be in terms of describing services. And a lot of what we do at Lawhawk is really trying to help to then sort of figure out how do we turn this into something that's not just a piece of paper, but something that's actually going to work well in practice to deliver the outcomes everybody needs. And so we will give options for how you can create specific deliverables and milestones, and really get into the detail of who needs to do what, by when, to what standard. So I've said yes to that. So on the next screen, we've got the ability to drill down and say, well, do we want to have the ability to put performance standards? Do we want the ability to specify due dates? If we wanted to, we could get into kind of invoicing dates, and we could put specific payment amounts against particular milestone deliverables as well if we wanted to, which would mean that we could say, well, look, this is only worth $2,000, so don't spend all your time on this. Make sure you're focusing on the right things. So here's just a couple of examples. This can be done as often as you need to, but you can really get into first deliverables. Maybe in an automation project might be to do an initial review and some redrafting of documents. And we could say that's just to be done to the normal standards under the contract, which would be best industry practice. And we want to put a date of 15 April. And then we could say for a second milestone, we want to do the services contract, and we could say that that'd be done by the 30th of April, and we could just keep on going. And so what we're getting now is a really clear map of exactly what's going to be delivered under this contract, and we can tell a lot more easily whether things are actually on track or not, or if there's issues. And you can then have a lot more options around how you break down the fees structure that will apply to that. Again, you could be cross-referring to some other document, or we could set it out here. And we can have a whole range of different options that are all aligned to the way we want the services to be delivered, and making sure the incentives are all aligned. So that could be a single fixed fee, or it could be an hourly rate that applies to everybody, or we could have different hourly rates for different people, and we can put maximum fees that would apply overall. We could have different fees, maximum fees for different people. So really, with what's possible with the legal automation aspects now, you can create pretty much any contract that you need, not just the standard form that you kind of try and apply to everything, but you can tailor the contract to the particular project and what you're trying to achieve, and you're going to get a lot better outcomes from doing that. But there's a lot more detail on this this form than what we've got time to go through now, so I'll jump out of here and we'll go into a much simpler scenario, which is just doing it as an NDA, which is where a lot of people will start with these things. So say I want to do a confidentiality agreement, or maybe we're trying to enable people in the business to be able to do a confidentiality agreement themselves. And so they could come on here, they can just hit this form, they can see that they need to enter their email address. And we'll go next on that. We'll put another party. You can have guidance off to the side. You can have links to the company's office to check that this company actually exists, which is a common problem. We can put an address. We can have standard options that would, you just go with the normal reasons for disclosure, or we can add in some other permitted purposes. So I could enter as many as I like there, and the reason I've done this on this example is because this will then be a trigger for some workflow that will happen with Power Automate, because we've chosen some of the non-standard options, and so we'll see that there'll be some extra emails that will start flying around to make sure that people who need to be informed about that are. We can embed compliance into these processes as well. So if there are certain things that you need people to know and to make sure they've understood what they need to do, instead of just having a policy somewhere off to the side that they're probably not reading, at least at the time they're doing this, you can actually build that into the process. So you're enforcing compliance, but also making it easy for people in terms of what they need to do. And here's where we're going to link up with secured signing. So we know that we need to get this document signed. So I'll put my first name here.
I love
Hayden.
all the different columns, because I can see that they can be put into a SharePoint list or the document library when we get completed, and I can create lots of different views based upon all of those different fields. So we can, create reports, and if you get really carried away, you could create Power BI reports and filter by client and industry and anything you can imagine. Anything that you're collecting there, we can actually use to, get some better pictures for the data.
That's absolutely the key to all this, I think, is while the initial focus is often on the time savings and being able to kind of get things done more quickly, I think the real long-term value that will come from all of this type of stuff is all of this data that's being created. It's all very structured, and as Hayden said, you've actually got this total visibility of what's happening in the organisation. So if you subscribe to the view that organisations are basically just collections of contracts for what you're buying and what you're selling, and you're actually getting all of that information, then you've got real-time insights into what your costs are going to be in particular months, where your revenue's coming from, which projects are on track, which ones are not, where you need to be applying your time. So I think that's really key. But yeah, they can also just make it really simple to get your signing done, because these bits of information here will create some little tags that go into the document exactly where somebody needs to sign, and that's what secured signing will then read when we submit for signing. So I'll hit submit on this, and what that'll mean is that the user's going to get a nice little simple message saying thanks very much for that. It's going to be emailed to you. Please follow the instructions. Here's a nice little summary of what they entered in case there's any issues. And if I switch over here to my email, we'll see there'll be some emails will start coming through here. So we've got one here, which is thanks for entering your information. Because you've chosen another type of purpose, it's going to go to legal to have a look at. They'll get back to you quickly. Here's the confidentiality agreement that's come through. We've set that so it's coming through in both PDF and Word. You can control who gets which format of document in that. this is what the legal team might get in terms of if they're keeping some oversight of what's going on, so they don't have to actually do the work, but they can see what's coming through and go into it. And here's an example of a approval email saying, hey, we've had a submission on that form, but it requires another purpose for disclosure. Is that okay or not? And so you can click approve and say, add a comment and submit that. Because I've approved that, that will then go back through Power Automate again, and there'll be some more emails that'll come through, which will confirm that we've now had that approved. And there's the comment that was made there. So that's just a really basic example of the type of stuff that you can easily do using the Office 365 suite to link up some of these discrete processes and turn it into a more coherent overall solution. The other thing that you can then do, we'll come back to the document in a minute, but we talked about all that data that's available. Up here is where we've got this sort of NDA SharePoint list, and we can see in here that we've got a whole list of different entries, including this one here, which has just come in, nice little sort of marker on there. I'll just expand this out so we can see all the columns on there. So all of your entries can go through, and you can basically be building your contracts database, or it could be any kind of information repository that you need, as Hayden mentioned. And you can track all of that information, including who approved what and any comments they made and all that stuff. And so someone like Hayden can take all that and turn this into reports, graphs, real-time insights that are all there. So this stuff, like there's a lot of money going into artificial intelligence to try and review NDAs, to be able to extract information, to be able to keep track of this stuff. You can avoid all of that really simply just by creating the data at the same time that you create the contract.
And
cool. So
previous contracts as well and put them into the same list so that you don't have to have a cutoff date from when we can go back previous stuff, pull out all that data and put it in again.
Awesome. So the next thing is kind of, okay, we've got this emails come in, and I need to now save that, or I should be saving it. A lot of people probably just leave these things sitting in their email, but how do I save the email and the attachments reasonably easily? If I click these dots here, I can use another add-in called One Place Mail, which Hayden helpfully referred us to. And so I can click on that, and that will enable me to choose that I can save the email, or I can save the attachments, or both of them. I can choose where I want to save that, so I can quite easily come in here and say, well, let's save it into SharePoint, and let's go into my corporate matters, and let's go back in here. And there's my secured signing 25 March folder that I just created, so I can save into there, and I could put these into final, for instance, and just save them there. So that can all be basically done in the background with like tagging and extra information that can all go there as well. So I can just click finish, get back to work on that. So next step would be, I can come into my matters. I've got corporate matters. See if I can bring that over. I can't, it's not showing. I've got my documents that are sitting in here, and where did I save that into final? So you can see they've gone into that folder. So that's really cool. What I'll do, just for the purpose of the demo and keeping things a little simpler, I'll come back up here. I'll come to this earlier one that I was just playing around with, and I've got some documents sitting in here. And let's say I want to send this document here out for signing. It's basically the same as the previous one. I can just tick this document, and I've got my secured signing integration sitting up here, where all I have to do is just click this and click send for signature. So let's do that. And one of the really cool things with secured signing is they've got the smart tag functionality, which is available. And so I can choose to use that, and that'll help read the document that I've uploaded and send it out. So we can read on the details here. It's got that email address, my name as one signatory. We've got different ways that we can authenticate, which could be by text message, or it could just be a passcode. There's Hayden. We'll also just do passcode for Hayden. We'll turn off the review before signing to speed things up a bit, and each of us will automatically get a completion email when this is finished, so that will just save some timing. They've also got really neat functions around video signing and things as well, but we'll skip that for now. So all I have to do is set my due date and hit send on that, and that'll fire that out. So Hayden will get an email at the same time that that we get one here, and we'll just go through and quickly show how you do your signing with secured signing. So here's my email. It's come through that quickly. I can just click here to review and sign. Remember, 3871 is my code. And I can continue. So the document that I've used actually has a big watermark on it, which I meant to take off. But what we've got here is it knows exactly where I need to sign, and it's already placed a signing block there. So all I have to do is click OK, and I've completed my signing. And you can see, as Lindsay showed, with the digital signings that secured signing have, it keeps a whole bunch of that information in there. How are you going with yours, Hayden? You've done already. Yeah. So we've now got our documents already been returned back to us. I can see in this email that every step in the process that we went through, I've got all of that. I can save that email. I could also save the attachment if I needed to, but I don't have to because that's automatically happened for us. So if I come back up to my matters again, I think it was in the draft folder, wasn't it, that we went to? So about a minute ago, we've got our signed copy of the contract automatically been returned back to this location. So really, you're not going to have those issues that you otherwise have, where you have to chase people, checking that they've got the document, have they signed yet or not, what's taking so long, getting scanned copies of counterparts back that you have to then compile and rescan and then sort of save back into things. Having things sitting in email because you didn't remember to save them. All of that stuff can disappear where you're using the Microsoft 365 suite and some complementary tools that can all be streamlined super quickly. One thing we didn't actually touch on, which is probably worth showing, is if we had wanted to check anything before that was sent for signing, including maybe wanting to collaborate on that between Hayden and I, within the Office 365 suite, you've also got this amazing kind of ability to share and collaborate as well. So I can just click on here to share this document. I could put Hayden's details in. I could add a message. And I could hit send on that. And that would then send a link to Hayden. And so Hayden would be able to work on that document at the same time. And then once it was finalized, we could then have done that signing. So that's the core of really what we wanted to show. I think there's that was most of it. I mean, there's so many other things that you can do, as Hayden said. All of those apps that are there and available can do so much more as well. But hopefully that shows how something that, I guess, in a real world situation, you could imagine taking multiple people days to be able to complete by the time they each do their stage, and sort of send it off more manually to people, and then have to wait and then move things along to the next phase where it can all be done so much more simply and in a joined up way. Is there anything else you wanted to add in there, Hayden, before we go to any questions?
No, I think that's really good, Gene, and that's exactly right. I mean, if you don't provide, as an organisation, if you don't provide something like this for your employees, they're going to come up with their own ones, and if they leave the organisation, you might be in trouble, depending on what they choose. You know, people might be doing this sort of thing through Dropbox or any of their own private email accounts and so on. So you've kind of got to take charge of some of these decisions, I think, and provide a company blessed solution.
Well,
Great.
thanks, Hayden and Jane. Oops, sorry, jumping in there. And this looks really good from a business continuity planning perspective as well. Like, as we've seen with things like COVID, like if you've got the structures and the automation in place, you're a little bit more insulated from any unexpected things happening, aren't you?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, there was a mad scramble a year ago today, really, wasn't it? Where everybody suddenly was trying to figure out how to get online and to start using some of the stuff and jumping onto Teams. But yeah, like if you make it part of what you do as your day-to-day work processes, then you don't have that same degree of dependency on being in the same location and paper-based processes. So it's immensely scalable. You know, that you can have anyone across the organization can be using these tools in the same way.
Cool, excellent. Now we've got about 5 or 10 minutes available for questions. So if anybody's got questions, if you want to fire them through on the chat panel, fire them through. Oh, there's actually a few coming through already. So the first question is, so how do we actually get the secured signing tab on SharePoint? I can't find it in the app section. We'll start with that first. There's a twofold question. So yeah, if you want to talk about where secured signing the tab is within SharePoint. So you download the integration from Microsoft for a start, and then that will bring it into the SharePoint menu structure, won't it, Jane?
Yeah, Hayden, do you want to talk to the specifics of exactly where you go to find that, not just secured signing, I suppose, but the whole range of different things, isn't there? I can possibly try and drive this while we do that.
Right. So if you jump to that left, the tab just to the left where you've got secured signing webinar, like get out of that Word document.
Yeah.
There you go. And then if we click on that cog at the top right, I call it the cog, but these panel thing, and then you want to click add an app.
Yeah.
Now we've already got it installed, so it'll be sitting there, and should be, well, it's probably because it's installed, it might not even be in our list, but
I can see it in the.
Cool. And then if you haven't got it though, you might want to click from the SharePoint store. And then when you click on that, there'll, there's probably a few different ones that way. Yeah. And then you do a search there for secured signing. And then you have to you add it back to your organization. There's a few hoops to jump through, but it's not too hard.
Cool. And you've also got integrations with Outlook and Word as well, haven't you, Lindsay? So there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely. And there's other content like document management systems and things that we integrate with as well. There's a question around the form creator that you used for the NDA. Before you answer that, I'll just point out to people, like within the secured signing platform, there is the ability to create online forms yourself. Jane was showing another product with some extra sophistication added in, weren't you, Jane?
Yeah, I was. It's another one of the tools that's out there which has integrations with the Office 365 suite. So that one was Cognito Forms, but there's numerous different forms and things that are there. It sort of very much depends on, I guess, what you're already using in the organization and what you're trying to achieve, and sort of like what's the right tool for your requirements. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this stuff within this overall suite of products.
Yeah, absolutely.
Internal facing permission tools, the Power Apps is a good way to go as well. But ultimately, we're using Power Automate to get that data from, not too worried where we're getting it from, to mush it all together into various other SharePoint lists and documents.
Cool. And also within the secured signing forms, you can do things like field validation and things like that, which I'm sure you can do within Power Apps as well. So yeah, as they said, just depends on your requirements. But we can, yeah, based on requirements, show you all the options there. Now, this has been a really great example showing a contracts process automated end to end. What other sorts of business processes would you apply this type of automation to?
You can pretty much apply it to any business process, I think, because if you look at the whole process from end to end, there's always sort of steps where you're needing to gather information or to share information or to make decisions based on information. So you don't necessarily have to generate a document for this to be incredibly useful. Again, it really depends on what you're trying to do, and maybe some things that in the past required a document to be created just because there was such long periods of time or lack of kind of visibility of what was happening that was how you managed the relationship. But you could certainly look at your overall process and say, I don't need the contract anymore, not a written document. We could actually just have a client could be filling in a form and we could just workflow that through and give them the result that they need, the answer that they require, whatever it is. So you can kind of do anything. I mean, some of the stuff we've done, I suppose, has been more legally focused and has had contracts in it, but health and safety analyses is one. Just the breadth of things, employment. Now you've done some really cool stuff with Power Automate, haven't you, Hayden, and employment recruitment processes, kind of end-to-end kind of checking of reference checking and interviews and preferred candidates. And there's literally no limit, I think, in terms of the type of stuff that you can do it with.
Cool, excellent. Now, if you wanted to get started with introducing further automation to digital signing, where would you start?
So linking into digital signing, I think it's incredibly easy to get started with secured signing. It's $10 a month, I think, is the lowest cost plan. So you can sort of get in there and start playing straight away. There's some great guidance and stuff on the website, the secured signing website, that helps you get started with things. There's a smart tag guide, which is all I needed to figure out how to be able to place those signing blocks into documents. You don't actually need any specific automation tool to do that. You could just save the format of the secured signing smart tags as a quick part in Word, to be honest, and you'd be able to drop them in really quickly into documents. So I think start with a document and a process that you would use quite regularly, and just have a bit of a play and see how it works, and get some confidence, which I'm sure you'll do really quickly, and then you can expand from there.
Cool, thanks, Jane. And now, in your demo, Jane, you showed some of the smart tag functionality from secured signing. Can you tell us how secured signing knows where each person actually needs to sign within a document? So from the example you showed, it looked like it happened automatically without actually positioning exactly where a signature block would appear on the document.
Yeah, so we took care of that when we automated the template. So that was a simple example where you can just say there's only two parties and each of them's going to sign in this location, and so we can just place that tag. It's just a bit of text in the right location, and that's all that's required. What you can do, which is really cool, is with automation, you could have lots of different parties and lots of different party types. And so Hayden and I have worked with a business broker who uses it for listing agreements when selling companies. And so he could have potentially any number of shareholders for the business. Those shareholders could be trusts, and each of those trusts could have multiple trustees, and some of them could be individuals and some could be companies. And we've used exactly the same thing to generate listing agreements with as many different shareholders and signatories as are needed, and in each case the tag for each of those signatories is automatically placed in the document. So it's just exactly the same, but he could have 10 parties signing the document and instead of one. But the whole thing still gets uploaded, read by secured signing, and then workflowed. So he doesn't have to do all the chasing. If 9 of them have signed and one hasn't, you can see it all on the dashboard, and they get automatic reminders from secured signing. So it's really cool.
Cool, awesome, thank you. And here's a specific question which I think I can answer. What are the implications for secured signing user licensing when connecting to SharePoint? So we don't charge for the integration with SharePoint, so you'd just have your own arrangements with whatever your SharePoint licensing cost is, plus your secured signing license costs. So it's free to integrate. We don't charge for API calls or anything like that. Cool. So now that looks like the end of the question. So what we're going to do is we're going to send an email out of the recording, and we'll pop in everybody's contact details as well. So you can reach out to Hayden or Jean or myself if you've got any further questions. Yeah, and feel free to circulate the webinar with any interested parties. But yeah, thank you, Jean and Hayden. That was a really good summary, giving a taste of how you can use all these different tools and make the most of them to automate processes and get more and more efficient.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Great, thanks, Lindsay.
Cool, awesome, thanks.